Ma-Africa, do not be surprised, I tell you, to see the ANC working with the DA. It is not unthinkable. In fact, the DA is already moving towards that direction.
Look, I mean, again, I think for me, from where I sit as the DA, having been around for as long as we have, I think we are not interested in being an opposition party forever.
My prediction is that the DA will turn its back towards the multi-party charter moonpeg shot and get into serious negotiations with the ANC, because the DA does not want to be left outside just to watch the ANC, EFF and MK work together. Let's speak about that and much more.
Welcome to King Said So, Africa's one land, one language, one currency, one army on King Said So. Africans can unite. Your Pan-Africanist podcast. Enjoy.
Black Heart, the Hustle Continua. 100% good quality t-shirts, made to inspire your goals and dreams. T-shirts are now available at an affordable price. Place your order now. 068-473-6908. Instagram at Black7576. Facebook page Black Heart.
Peace in Pan-Africanism to all my African brothers and sisters from all around the world. Welcome back to King Said So. I'm your host, King 053, Mr. Easy, Imali, Enengi, and we're back at it again with another one. Well, this time around, I'm speaking about the opposition, official opposition party, the DA, Chief Whip, uSiviwe Kwahube, who went into an interesting interview with Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh. And I'm telling you, it's game on. It's game on, my people. The DA does not want to be left out. The DA does not want to be left out. Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh is always having a great interview with Siviwe, and asking the relevant questions and trying to give us a peek into the mind of the DA in terms of their standing, because we all know that we're going to get a coalition government no matter what. The biggest shock of the 2024 election is if the ANC gets more than 50%. That will be the biggest shock. Otherwise, anything else is not going to shock us. It's not going to shock us to see the DA working with the ANC, the DA working with the EFF, the EFF working with the ANC, Mkhonto we-Sizwe working with those things are not going to shock us. We're expecting that. We're expecting that behind closed doors, there's going to be some serious negotiations. There's going to be some serious compromise. There's going to be some serious policy adjustments and shifting of heart, just so that you can be in power. The ANC, no matter what you say, is going to be part of those talks. The chances of Mkhonto we-Sizwe, the EFF, BLF, PEC, AZAPO, and all those other parties getting a majority that is more than 50% are unlikely to happen. And the chances of Mkhonto we-Sizwe or EFF working with the DA, that's also unlikely, but also possible. Let's listen to what Siviwe says about where the DA stands when it comes to how they feel about the ANC, because seeing that they have lost power, got under 50%, working with Mkhonto we-Sizwe or the EFF, because that is very likely to happen. If the ANC has got any split or dust of pride left in them, that is the knowledgeable, sensible, thing to do. Work with the black parties. Work with the black parties and give the DA a heart attack, because the DA simply does not want to be opposition again, because the elections are, you can't predict what is going to happen in 5 years. Let's listen to what Siviwe says.
What he's pushing for and what he thinks there's some traction for is an ANC, EFF, and MK 2/3 governing coalition.
Sure.
So that's one of the scenarios that's being pushed. So one can only imagine that would certainly strike fear into the heart of many South Africans, maybe who vote for the DA. I think you've already called ANC EFF doomsday. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah.
But that's another possibility that maybe we haven't looked at yet.
Yeah. Look, I think that kind of voting bloc should strike fear in the hearts of many South Africans, in my view. I think that, we should generally be fearful of any party that seeks to resurrect the party, the ANC from its grave. Because also then the question becomes, what will that look like? The EFF, and so the EFF and the ANC together, there may be some concurrence there in terms of some policies, but certainly the EFF is to the far left of the ANC in many ways. And so the question becomes where will the ANC find itself? The ANC has been very good in being a broad church for so long, but if they now rely on another partner to essentially pull them over the 50% mark, will they be drawn in whichever direction? And if so, what kind of compromises will they make? What kind of compromises will they make, for instance, in an economic policy? An economic policy that we don't think is, obviously, we think there are many things that could be done right, including, jolting this economy into producing jobs and the like. But it's generally been all right. I think it's been generally accepted by most people. Will it be leaning in one way or another? What other policies will we start to see, and policy changes will we start to see? I think that an MK, BLF and EFF and ANC coalition government, for me, would not be a very good scenario for South Africa. I think that certainly if the ANC is to partner with any political party, one would hope that they would partner with a political party that would bring it more to the rational center.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the DA is having sleepless nights about this situation. They're having sleepless nights about this situation. The thought of MK and EFF working with the ANC, it gives the DA chest pains. They cannot sleep. They cannot sleep because of that. Because remember, this is the same DA in 2019 that got declined in their percentage and the amount of votes they got. Polls are predicting that the DA will decline again. So they know they are not in a position to play kingmaker. They are not there. They are not there. They are just there to beg for a space for a deputy president at most. At most, that is what they are seeking. So thinking about Umkhonto weSizwe, which is what we Africans want. Umkhonto weSizwe, the ANC, and the EFF. And you can put in Azapo, ATM, PAC, BLF. You can put in those, all of those black parties finally working together. Why? Because the dynamics of those political parties, the outcome will always benefit the black person. Not completely, but the lives of black people will slightly improve if those parties merge together. And where would that leave the DA? Out there in the wind, out there in the rain? And from there, John Steenhuisen will lose control of the DA. Trust me. 5 years to come, he will no longer be the president of the DA, and we will start seeing the DA die slowly and becoming a political party that hits 12 to 15%. And eventually, 10 years from now, the DA will be irrelevant if the black parties can manage to stick together. And we are praying that that will happen. As a Pan-Africanist podcast, as a Pan-Africanist channel, that's what I want. That's what I want, because I know no matter what happens in that coalition, we're not going to see Cyril Ramaphosa become president. And worst case scenario, if he is the president, I don't think he will have the same control as he would have if the ANC got 50% and 50% plus one. You know, I think Cyril Ramaphosa, if he becomes a president, he'll be a very consultative president. He'll be consulting with the other people, but his life will be it will be hell, because the MK will continue to take him to court. Pala thing will rise again. Eventually, he will step down. You know, and remember, the MK wants Jacob Zuma to rule, even if it's just for 5 more months or 6 more months. There's a lot that they believe they can do in those months. So the DA does not want it, absolutely does not want it. So it's left with one option: go and speak to the ANC. Go and speak to the ANC. Back in the days, it was not even an option. ANC must go out. ANC must die. ANC this. But right now, because like they say, the shit is hitting the fan, you know, they can see what they are in trouble. Now they are, you know, when Usiviwe was asked this question, how likely is it that you guys will work with the ANC? She did not give a definite no answer. And for me, if you don't say definitely no, then it's a yes. You know, I can't come to you and say, are you gay? And you say, it's either a no or a yes. I can't ask you and say, are you employed? It's either you are employed or you are not employed. You know, are you married? You know, will you work with the ANC DA? Yes or no? Listen to what Usiviwe said.
Well, what about you? There's been a lot of talk. When I read the tea leaves, I get the sense that this talk is more serious than maybe any of the parties have let on in public. But maybe you can tell us today, do you think that an ANC, a grand coalition, so for example, DA Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis has spoken about it not being, it being the least worst option, and I think John Steenhuisen has also said that. Snugi Zigalala from the ANC Veterans League has said, no, the DA is the natural partner. So how likely is this?
Look, I think from where I'm sitting, I think in the federal executive of the organization, definitely the priority has been to bolster as much as possible the multi-party charter. So we are under tremendous amount of pressure to grow significantly. Obviously, you'll recall that in 2019, we regressed slightly and lost votes and seats. And so this past 5 years has been a lot about how do we consolidate that growth and how do we make sure that we retain our support. Yeah. So we're under a lot of pressure to grow, because also we have to bring our share of the vote to the MPC. And so our big focus is really trying to put these parties together, these opposition parties. Because for me, that would be the first prize. The first prize is trying to get a group of opposition parties who have already decided on what governance priorities they pursue, who've already decided what principles bring them together. That would be the first prize, to put that together and essentially either in provinces or at a national level. And so that is the party strategy at the moment, Sizwe, is to try and either outright, obviously, retain the Western Cape, but also hopefully outright maybe see what we can do in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal with some of our partners. And at a national level, the strategy really is focusing on getting an opposition party coalition. I think it would be very difficult and premature even to have a discussion about the ANC and its future, because, of course, at the moment we've spent 30 years, if you trace the DA's roots back to the DP, we've spent 30 years trying to dislodge this party. And then to now, in the eve of an election, talk about how we would seek to, resuscitate them from their dying, hours would almost seem counterintuitive. And so I think the focus must be to grow the organization. And then, of course, we would go back to our voters and to the MPC after the election to say, look, this is what we were able to do. What's the best course forward?
So it seems to me when I look at the polling data that the MPC is not going to be able to get over the 50% mark. And of course, if it does, then we know exactly what's going to happen. And it seems to me as well that the ANC is not going to get over the 50% mark. I continue to believe that. Others say it's impossible, it will never happen. We'll see. But if we're in a situation where neither the MPC nor the ANC is over the 50% mark, then it seems to me that there are two scenarios presenting the DA. One is that you go with the ANC and abandon the MPC. The other, which people haven't spoken about, which I continue to raise, is that you bring in the EFF to get over 50%. Now, that sounds crazy, and oh my goodness, you're on different sides of the political spectrum. We've seen that before in South African politics. In fact, Zuma brought in the Freedom Front Plus in many of his cabinets, and you govern together in Joburg as well. So those seem to be the options if you want to govern. Of course, if the other option would be to step away and decide you're just going to go into the opposition and whoever wants to form a government can do that. I suppose a fourth scenario is that there's some kind of national unity government where everyone comes together and sings Kumbaya.
Some GNU.
Yeah. So, I put these scenarios to you in the event that you don't get the 50.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, again, I think for me, from where I sit as the DA, having been around for as long as we have, I think we are not interested in being an opposition party forever. And again, I mean, and I say this freely without, obviously these discussions have to happen in the context of a leadership discussion.
And it makes sense, right?
Yeah, but I definitely think from where I sit, the DA doesn't want to be in opposition forever. I mean, we want to grow. We want to be a party of government. We want to be able to replicate what we believe is a good governance record that we've done in the Western Cape and other parts of the country. And also because we need to break out of the Western Cape. We want to be able to, when we talk about our government successes, say we've managed to bring down unemployment in KwaZulu-Natal. We've managed to, revive service delivery in Gauteng. It becomes important for your brand proposition, right? Where otherwise people start to box you and say, well, your governance record is only here. So it's very important for the DA to break out of the Western Cape. We want to be in government. We want to grow. And so that's why this election becomes one for the election geeks and the democracy geeks. It's incredibly interesting because the next 60 days are about to be wild. And so we've got that kind of...
It's going to be a movie.
It is going to be a movie. And we've got that kind of challenge facing us. So if we're able to really, for instance, move towards the mid-20s to closer to 30s, depending on what the voters believe we deserve, then we've got a big stake in whatever happens, in whatever configuration is happening, then we've got a say in that.
Sure.
I think it would be incredibly difficult for the DA and the EFF to work together in a national government space, simply because of what I was speaking about, even with the ANC, that, there's 7 cardinal pillars that the EFF speaks of, which many of them we are diametrically opposed to. We believe in non-racialism, they don't. We don't believe in cater deployment, they do. We believe in protecting property rights, they don't. So these things are incredibly important in a national government space.
You know what, ladies and gentlemen, I believe when it comes to choosing enemies, true enemies, there is no worse enemy for the DA than MK. And the second worst enemy for the DA when it comes to a national election is the EFF. With the ANC, they are an enemy. They wanted to take them down for so many years. Yes, it's true. But the DA does not want power to be given to the EFF and the MK. So in so doing, they have to be totally honest with themselves to say, luister mense, kom ons werk maar met die kaffertjies. Kom ons werk met Cyril. Hy's eintlik nie so bad nie, man. Hy's nie so bad nie, man. Kom ons werk met hom. Ons kan nie met hy hardkop wat so gooi en ras in die straat en hy Julius Malema. En ons kan nie met die groot kop, die butternut kop, Jacob Zuma werk. Kom ons maar werk met die ANC, met die Fikile Mbalula en al die ander mense. Kom ons maar werk met hulle. I think that's what they're going to say. Excuse me for using the K word. But that's what they are thinking in their minds. I'm just saying it out loud. That's what they will say. Let's just work with the ANC. It's either that or the DA will die a slow death. It will die a slow death. If I was in the DA, I would be kissing the ANC's ass. Because remember, they are funded anyway by the same people. The ANC and the DA is funded plus minus by the same funders. Excuse me. You know, the policies of the ANC are protecting white monopoly capitalists. The ANC is a multiracial party. The DA is a multiracial party. The ANC believes the South Africa belongs to everyone that lives in it. The DA believes that South Africa belongs to everyone that lives in it, but white people are special. You know, same thing. The ANC protects white minds, companies that are looting our country. The DA is happy with that decision. So for me, I don't see a big difference between the ANC and the DA. The issue is that should those two merge, the people that will suffer is the people of South Africa. Because you can see the DA is hungry to break out of the Western Cape. In fact, they should be focusing on the Western Cape because the competition is tight in the Western Cape. The competition is tight in the Western Cape for the DA. You understand what I'm saying? So I don't know. Let's see what we'll do. And you know, the funny thing is that when we speak about the multi-party charter and the Moonpack shot, their agreement is that none of those political parties, about 6-7 of them that are in the multi-party charter, MPC, that none of them will get into any formal negotiations with the ANC. But the DA will turn around, even if you take them to court or whatever, they will turn around and turn their backs on the multi-party charter, the NPC. They will turn. Because let me tell you something, if you didn't know, South Africans, all these politicians, all of them, they just want power. Power to influence, power to change things, power to better their lives. Everyone at the end of the day is looking at their family. None of these politicians I can name today is selfless. None. There is an element of self-enrichment, self-praise, self-upliftment for all of these politicians. It's the nature of being a politician. It's the nature. They can't help it. They all want to be at the top. They all want to make decisions. They all want to better their lives than our lives. You understand what I'm saying? They will never suffer with us first so that they can get, They can fix things. There was an interview where Julius Malema said, I will never send my children to a public school. At the end, and he's not wrong by saying that, everyone has to look after their own. So I see the DA looking after their own. The multi-party charter nonsense that the IFP is following, because the IFP is the only other major role player in that multi-party charter. The rest, they are insignificant, to say the least. You know, they can try our Action SA and all that nonsense, but when we speak about people who will be impacting the elections, we will not be speaking about them. The top 5 will remain the top 5. Nothing is going to change. So that's my thoughts on the DA working with the ANC. I don't want to entertain the talks of the DA working with the EFF. I don't see that happening. Again, hey, but these politicians, so votela bani. These politicians, they can surprise us. The DA, imagine you are a white person and you hear that the DA is going to work with the EFF. Just imagine. The policy difference between those two political parties are miles apart. Miles. You know, I really, who says CVO is saying the truth there. It's going to be difficult for them to work together on a national level. It's going to be difficult. I also don't see it. I don't entertain it. I don't think it's going to happen. But the likeliness of them, the DA, working with the ANC, that they call the enemy, I think that's a possibility. You guys go in the comment section and tell me, what do you think about that? And please, should you feel like supporting the channel, click the like button, click the thank you button below the video. You know, I will appreciate that. And also send us an email, buy the books. I'm starting to sound like Season Pofu Welche, because he says the same thing. But anyway, buy the book, you know, and book us for some talks if you want to have a Pan-Africanist speaking as a guest speaker. Your boy King 053, Mr. Easy Imalenengi will be there to speak about true Pan-Africanism that these politicians are afraid to say. So thank you so much. We're trying to reach that 30,000 subscribers before the elections. I will appreciate it. If you are indeed enjoying the content of this video, of this channel, please click the subscribe button. Most importantly, let's engage each other on the comment section. Until we meet next time, don't forget to pray. After you pray, African child, stand up, do your best so that God can do the rest. Peace in Pan-Africanism. I salute you.